morning, everyone, and welcome to the backyard with Aislynn and now Kai-Shen. This is my new little friend. We just got together on Monday, and now we're getting to know the garden. And this was the big news. I think I mentioned to you guys last week that I had some really big news that I didn't want to quite share yet, and so this is my new big news. Oh, gross. That's disgusting. All right. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, first of all, we're going to be celebrating the Thanksgiving feast this coming Thursday. And that means that those of us that garden are going to be pulling those beautiful late summer plantings that we did. We're going to be pulling from those harvests. So some of the things that you might expect to see on a Thanksgiving table when you've begun planting in August or late September in our region, of course, would be eggplants. We've got eggplants growing on things just like this. You can see here, so lots of eggplant to harvest. We've got beans to harvest. Now, I don't really have any beans here in this garden, but I have some beans out in my farm garden out there to harvest. You're also beginning to harvest some tomatoes. We are starting to see more and more tomatoes. As my plants get bigger out on the garden at the farm, I'll start to see a lot more tomatoes. My tomatoes have not just stayed healthy in this backyard garden, and I think it has a lot to do with some of those pathogens we've talked about over the last year, and just how the tomatoes tend to spread those around a lot. In addition to that, I probably overwater in this particular garden in a way that affects those tomatoes and causes the spread of those different pathogens, especially when you're talking about overhead watering. So if you're working in a space and you're not in a situation where I am, where you can actually move out of this particular area and grow in other places as well, then one of the things that you'll want to do is come up with an in-ground or a drip type of irrigation system that'll help with some of those diseases that get spread in the backyard garden in a close environment like this. But I also wanted to tell you, in addition to harvesting beans and maybe even black-eyed peas and tomatoes and eggplants and cucumbers, even kale, of course, you're harvesting right now. You're also beginning to run into getting your late winter planting going into, or sorry, your late fall planting going into. Too much sun over there? Okay, so I want to come around and show you something this way. So here is the way that I've been planting as I've been mixing in and starting to get used to getting my, of course you can see here that I've got the onions in the ground, all of that. You can also see that I've got like beets and things like that. They don't seem to be super happy over here. In other parts of the garden, they're really starting to take off and be really successful. As a matter of fact, you can actually see, I believe these little beets right here were probably planted even maybe later or in succession at the same time with these. So you can see the difference in placement just from one side of the garden to the other side of the garden. But then in addition to that, I'm starting to see too that I have the sugar snap peas that are starting to come up. And I've put them in a place where they can be trellised and they can grab onto things and then grow up this type of thing. So now's the time that you really start heavily putting in those sugar snap peas and snap peas. So if you haven't done that, that's something that you definitely want to work on this time of year. So I'm trying to go over to a place where, come on, let's go to a place where we're over here. You can see that all of the things that I had started to plant, so that the stuff that will come out in my my winter gardens is the cauliflower and the cabbages and the Brussels sprouts and things like that, that we would probably start harvesting in late winter or in early spring. And but that's part of, okay, so the end of my season fall planting is beginning to really get some of those softer greens in. So your mustard greens, you may have noticed that the turnips and the radishes that you've already planted, a lot of the little insects are eating up the leaves of that. And that's kind of what happens when we wait to put in those soft greens like the lettuce, the spinach, the mustard greens, some of those softer things. That's part of the reason why we do that. You can see that the flea beetles and all kinds of things tend to kind of pick away at that stuff, the caterpillars and things like that too. Now, as warm as it has been this fall already, it might be a challenge for some of those things that we have grown in the past that really like the cool temperatures. So some of those peas, some of those lettuce, some of those spinaches, you're looking for the most nice, you're getting the sunlight, but you're also getting coolness, cool space area, so that as we move into the winter and we start to see finally less pest pressure, that we still have the ability to grow some of those cooler plants. Are you having a tomatillo down there? I'm trying to teach him not to eat plants for several reasons. One, because I don't want him to eat those poisonous plants that we've talked about over the months. And also because I don't want him to eat my vegetables off the plant. I want them to stay, and if I give them to him, he can have them. So we're learning. He's a puppy, so we've got lots to learn with that. So those are some things that just the idea of now is that time where if you are going to do those more traditionally winter types of plantings, the snap peas, of course, we talked about last week, putting your onions in the ground, making sure that you're putting your onions in. You're also putting in nasturtium. Somebody asked me the other day if we can grow nasturtium in our area. We absolutely can. Nasturtium likes this kind of less than the mid 70s to lower temperatures, kind of like the snap peas do. Now, snap peas are going to be the most successful. Sugar snap peas and the snow peas are going to be the most successful if we do end up getting some of that cool weather. I expect that we will, and so I think that we're going to be perfectly timed if you're beginning to put your snap peas in and sugar snap peas in right now. And continue putting in your lettuce. Continue putting in, come here you, because there's lots of stuff over there I don't want you to eat. So if you're going to continue putting in, I'm sorry, I'm so distracted today with this little new puppy that I'm getting used to with the videos and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're putting in your lettuce, your spinach, all of that, continue to keep putting that in. Continue to keep starting your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, any of that stuff from seed. Continue to be up planting things and putting them in the ground. So you can see every single one of these is continuing. So I'm starting in seed here. I still have things germinating, some of that same stuff that's been germinating, and then I'm upping it to a smaller pot here, so then you can see that as it goes from there, it goes to this, and then it goes from this up into one of these bigger pots, and then these pots go from here to the actual ground, and that's what I'll be doing in terms of succession, in terms of new spaces at the farm garden that I'll be establishing and being able to put more vegetables into. And the other thing that I'm noticing is my tomato plants are doing really, really well, even the ones that are still in the pot. And that's because we're still having this beautiful spring type weather in our fall. And so we're taking advantage of that. And you can see truly, this is the reason why we grow the way we grow in South Texas. This is the reason why we gamble with tomatoes and squash and things like that. Even as late into the season as this, is because we could potentially end up with very, very healthy plants. Are you choking on coffee back there now? It's been one of those kind of mornings, hasn't it been? All right, so
breaking that fourth wall. I don't intend to do it.
No, you should definitely do it. I
almost did a spit take all over you.
Nice. That would have definitely been an interesting morning moment.
When will these tomatoes go into the ground?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I needed to go ahead and up pot them to this particular size. They may end up being container tomatoes, and that I just keep around here, and then if there's a freeze, then I just move them into a place where I can protect them myself, because they're already putting tomatoes on.
What's the single most favorite vegetable to grow, as far as the work of it is delightful because of the vegetable itself?
Maybe tomatoes, but tomatoes are so, they're so finicky. I don't know. I mean, I like them all. You know, one of the things I'm trying really hard to sell people on right now is the idea that radishes can be done more than one way, more than just sliced and put on the top of your salad, which means you use one radish a week maybe. But there's so many other amazing ways to use radish, and part of that is because I really like the radishes. I think they're so beautiful, especially the ones that take longer than those little 25-day red cherry type of thing.
Of all of the food that you...
I love cauliflower. Okay. I love the purple cauliflower. I love the cheddar cauliflower. I love big, beautiful cauliflower heads.
You may have answered the next question I had. Of all the food that's currently in the ground here and at the farm, which single vegetable are you most looking forward to picking and eating? One, you only pick one.
I can't choose. Nope, I can't choose.
These are the hard questions that must be answered.
No, they're not.
Okay.
I choose not to answer that question. I love them all, and I want to have taken them all. I mean, think about the poblano pepper. When I get a poblano pepper, I'm like, poblano peppers. When I get celery, celery, it's so great. Radish, look how beautiful this radish is. Oh, these peppers, oh, these
By
tomatoes.
not choosing one favorite, they all remain your favorite, and then every harvest is a success.
Every harvest is a success. Eggplant has become my favorite. I mean, why not? I grow eggplant really well in this backyard garden, the way it's set up. That's one of the things we were actually talking about yesterday, and that is, what is your land going to be most abundant in? What is your season going to be most abundant in? Because I have planted, for those of you that are keep up in the different groups that I'm involved in and stuff like that, he's just hanging out. I have planted hundreds of thousands of seeds starting in August this year, and have planted succession, just keep planting, keep upping, put them in the ground, keep planting. But truthfully, I still don't know 100% of what is going to be the most abundant things in those particular gardens. An example of that is to say that I just have such a hard time growing tomatoes in this backyard. I have grown tomatoes in this backyard, but it's because I'm very finicky and picky, and I keep working at it until I don't give up. But eggplant grows very, very easily. Even the eggplant that was a sick eggplant that I trimmed back has got new flowers on it and is about to put more eggplant on. I can almost ignore the eggplant and they will eventually put flowers on and produce. The peppers that I've grown back here, the habanero peppers, the hot peppers particularly, very, very easy, very abundant. I have noticed that in this garden, I have a lot of success with the cauliflowers, the broccolis, and things like that. So I've overplanted those types of things in this particular garden. And I know I say this every week, but I think that it's just, you've got to remember it every time, no matter who you're talking to, no matter what experienced gardener you're going with, no matter what landscaper you're speaking to, you always have to have your job, your number one job as a gardener in your backyard is to understand what your backyard will yield, to understand what your backyard is most geared to grow well. And you can grow things that you love and that are your favorite vegetables, but you also have to begin to know, what does your yard love? What does this land love? What does it want to grow? What types of nutrients are already naturally available in the property that you've created, with the shade you have, with the different types of pests and pathogens you have? One of the things I've learned very recently out at the farm is that, and I knew this already because I grew out at the farm about 10 years ago, but there's a lot of pest pressure at the farm. And because there's a lot of pest pressure, I really have to be really adamant about making sure that the soil that I'm planting into is very healthy, that the plants are strong and healthy when I put them out there. And then I've done tons of companion planting to help offset some of that pest pressure. That pest pressure out there is much more significant than the pest pressure we have here.
Because of open field?
I think it has a lot to do with, and this is just my theory, but it has a lot to do with the fact that we're surrounded by commodity farms. We're surrounded by cotton fields and sorghum fields, and they spray different types of sides there, herbicide, pesticide, things like that.
And it drifts over no matter what.
It drifts over, but mostly what happens is those pests are going to go look for green. They're going to look for green to eat. They're going to look for food. I mean, there's survival of the fittest concept with the insects, just like anything else. And so they move to a place where they can find some green, delicious, good stuff to eat. The other thing about it is that when you live in a very rural area and people don't have the same type of urban, rural, there is different types of things that you potentially deal with. Like here in an urban area, we're going to deal with more pathogens, more diseases, more things that we spread amongst one another, amongst our animals, amongst our backyards, things like that, because we're closer together, we're tight knit, we spread things very easily, right? But we also spray a lot of pesticides, we also spray, we kill a lot of the life around here, so there's not as much of...
Well, hold on, we don't spray pesticides. You're talking about the neighborhood?
Just in general, even the city sprays a pesticide when they kill the mosquitoes, which is fine. That's the urban way. So you learn to fit into the urban way and make your way fit into the urban way. Well, the rural way is going to be different. So one of the things that they deal with in the rural area that often is massive amounts of growth of different types of hay fields, grass fields, unattended weedy fields. It doesn't really matter. You've got all kinds of things, and that means that pests have the ability to just grow in abundance out there and then spread, and then when the farmer comes through and runs them off that land, and then they run over to some other land. So what are you giggling about now?
Nothing.
All right, so that's really the main thing I wanted to talk about today. I apologize for being a bit distracted today. I definitely want to remind everyone that don't stop planting. Keep planting. Keep planting everything. You be brave with your tomatoes. If you've got tomatoes in containers like this, just keep them warm and keep them in a sunny spot. And if we start to see cold temperatures, wrap them up in a blanket or something like that. Keep your tomato plants alive, because again, just like right now, we're producing tomatoes. We're going to continue to produce tomatoes likely through the winter, and then we're going to produce tomatoes all the way into the springtime. So continue to keep, just as we move into the summer, and I talk you through getting through the summer and keeping things healthy and keeping things alive, that's the exact same thing we need to deal with here in the wintertime as we enter the wintertime. We may enter the wintertime. We may not enter the wintertime. Who even knows in South Texas? But we prepare for it one way or the other. One of the other things you should begin doing right now as we get to the end of November is cutting back all of your milkweed, making sure that you have planted any perennial fruiting trees or any perennial plants that you want to plant in the ground. Go ahead and get them in the ground right now. And also, any plants that you already have in the ground or any new trees that you put into the ground, make sure you heavily mulch around them. Heavily mulch your footpaths. All of that kind of stuff is going to help you keep that warm microclimate that I've talked about for many times. So if and when, because we will get something at some point, even if it's only one night for an hour, if and when the cold winds start to come in, your areas will be warm and ready to receive that and will be prepared for it. So that being said, I will not see you before Thanksgiving, so I wish you a very, very happy and amazing feast with your friends, and I'm hoping that you're eating some of the most delicious food that you've grown in your own backyard, and or that you're going out and partnering up, going to the farmer's market, finding a local grower, and purchasing anything that they have coming out of their garden so that you can put it on your feast table for Thanksgiving. Have a lovely week. Check out dinnertabletalks.com to get to episode 12. Episode 12, season 2. We're having a lot of fun doing that. And of course, this will drop on YouTube by next week. I'll see you soon. Bye.